Welcome to another G4 Guitar Teacher Hangout. David Hart's my name. I've got a couple of guys here from the UK. I've got Paul and Ben, and what we're going to do is I've got really a special subject tonight because what's happened is that one of the teachers came to me a few days ago, and we started talking, and then we sort of went back and forth on questions, and he was really trying to understand where the referral thing came from, and how you get a lot of referrals, and why is it that some businesses just go viral, and obviously that's what happened for me with G4. And it's something that it hadn't happened to me prior to G4. I'd had a good business, and things had happened well, and I definitely had a reputation. But what happened when I started G4, the viral thing caught me by surprise, and it's funny because over the years since that happened, which is over 10 years ago now, the questions come up: how did you do it? What happened? How did it work? And I couldn't really put my finger on it. I had that thing, and I've read about this. If you read anything on Robert Greene's Mastery and things like that, he talks about how often no, actually I think it's in the other book, which is Practice Perfect, and he talks about often how someone who's done something well, or mastered it, if you like, they have trouble going back and seeing how they did it and what the steps are to get there, the process that they've learned. Often, in my case, I know it was a lot of trial and error over the years, a lot of obsession as well, I guess. I really hated losing students. I had many sleepless nights, and I was constantly trying to find different ways. So I was constantly testing different things, and willing to take risks and find out what it was. And so during that process, because it's often a long process, you don't know what actually was the reason, or what were the things that made the difference. But as I get into sort of stepping back a little bit, which has happened especially over the last few years with G4, as the teachers are drilling me more and more about how did he do this, and how does it happen, and looking for the clues. This was just one of these things that came up in the conversation, and it hit me that this is a big part of it. This is something that perhaps I haven't talked enough about, or haven't even been aware of, that I was doing. And I certainly wasn't aware of it when I was doing it, but now that I look at it, and I think part of it has to do with the fact that I'm a parent. So let me explain, and then it'll come across a little bit better. So the topic is the secret of going viral. So how do you get your business to go viral? For me, and I'll talk about what happened for me, which was it went viral with kids. And so it's not that I went viral with everyone. I certainly didn't go viral with adults. I had a few adult students, but it was the kids that went viral. That's where all my groups were, and that's what filled. So what happened is that I'll say first up that it's all about the parents. The viralness of what happened for me is focused on the parents, not so much the kids. The kids certainly played a part in it, but it was the adults, the parents, and more so the mothers, because there were a couple of fathers. There was one particular father that I might even sort of talk about in a minute, but I've mentioned him before, who was very instrumental in my ability to go viral. And he was, and the reason is because he was the kind of guy that was a connector, but he put the word around. He was someone who had influence over other people. So he was able to go out and spread the word about me, rather than me going and spreading the word about me, which is it's never as good if you try and spread the word about yourself. If you talk about yourself, it comes across as a little bit egotistical, whereas in his case, it's more he was recommending me. So let me sort of see if I can put this, I'm trying to get it in my head to make sure I get it across the right way. So what was happening was that with the parents, and the connection that they had amongst each other. That's the first clue, is that parents are very connected. And again, I'll come back to the mothers. They're very connected, and anyone who's a parent can understand this. I know Paul is a parent, and he would know that if he goes to his daughter's school, and he will see that the parents are gathering again. And I'm saying the mothers, it's not being sexist, it's just the way it is. A lot of the fathers go and work, and the mothers look after the kids. It doesn't have to be that way, but it seems to be the way. So the so they're talking, and I went to my daughter's school yesterday. We enrolled her into the new school here in Japan, and when I was there again, you've got all these parents hanging around, 90% of the mothers, and they're chatting and talking, and then they're talking about going to a cafe straight after they drop the kids off school and continue the conversation. So there's a lot of talk going on between what's going on, and they're talking about their kids mostly and the activities that their kids are involved. So obviously that's the first clue. We've talked about that, and that's really important, is to know that the parents are where the connection is. So the second thing was, what is it that parents want? And I guess from being a parent, I understand this better, and I'm more aware of it now. Is that what we want for our children is to have obviously a positive role model, and we will actually gravitate towards teachers who seem to give us that positive role model, and we'll move away from people who we think are maybe not a good role model for our child for whatever reason. If you don't want your child to smoke, which most parents don't, if the teacher's there smoking, it's probably going to turn you off. No matter how good you think that particular teacher is or their reputation, if you see that part of that part of the teacher's behavior that you don't want your child to adopt, then you're probably not going to go that way. So that's why, as far as that's concerned, it's not a good thing if you want to be a teacher. So if we then look at, all right, so what is it about particular teachers or particular adults that make a good role model for a parent? And so when I think about, okay, what would I want for my daughter? What's a good role model that I want? And there is various things that you might think about. You might want someone who eats good food, who's healthy, who is happy, which is a big one, of course. Someone who seems intelligent, someone who seems well off and has a good job. So all these kind of things that we think about as the main things that we want for our child to sort of emulate and follow that type of role model. But there's something that I found that really stood out amongst all the others, and it was the one thing that I knew that I did, and like I said, this came up in the conversation, and that is that what we want for our kids is for our kids to grow up, and for us as parents to have a good relationship with our children. So in order to have a good relationship with our children, or for there to be present a good relationship with our children, then obviously our children need to speak well about us. So they need to share, when they talk about us, we don't want them saying, Daddy's just a real pain, and I hate my dad, or I hate my mom, or horrible parents that make me do things, etc., etc. These kind of things are the kind of things that we don't want as parents. We don't want to grow up. We don't want our children growing up, hating us and not liking us, or resenting us, or battling with us. We don't want these things to happen. We want our child to think well of us. Of course, we want to think well of them. Now, we know that it doesn't always happen. We know there are plenty of examples of people with children, or plenty of adults who don't talk to their parents. They don't have much good to say about their parents. They blame their parents for how their life turned out. So we see lots of examples of this, of these kind of negative sides of how children can grow up to be a parent, or be an adult, sorry, and think of their parents. So if, as a parent, I want my daughter to have a good role model, then one of the things that obviously is going to be important to me is a teacher who actually has an affection for their own parents, somebody who talks well about their parents. They have respect and love and all these great qualities for their parents. So, and even though it's not always conscious, and that's why it didn't come on my radar for a long time, but I used to talk a lot about my parents. I talked about my experience musically, how my dad and I spent a lot of time together. We still do, and how important he was in my life musically, and just as a dad, the whole influence, and how my mum, even my parents separated when I was 7. How my mum started a business, and she built up a multi-million-dollar business, and how how proud I was of her, and how she helped me through getting my own business started, and always was there for me to give me advice. And I could always go whenever I had a tough time. I could go and talk to my mum about how things weren't working the way I thought they would. And so I had a father and a mother who I spoke very highly about. And one of the things that I really respected about my parents is that when they went through the divorce, there was never any of this, your dad is this and your mum is that. There was never any of that with my parents. They were always respectful to each other. They always spoke well of each other. And I never ever got any of that. And that's something that even though you don't realize as a kid, when I grew up, I realized, wow, they were amazing parents. They didn't show any anger or spite towards each other. They always spoke well of each other, and they always supported each other, and there was never any fighting over custody or anything like that. My dad realized we were better with our mum, and my mum was happy for us to go with our dad whenever holidays came around and whatever. So by talking well of my parents and having that respect and admiration for my own parents and sharing that with parents, that's a quality that they looked for, even though that they, like I said, they may not have been conscious of that. So my advice to you is this: is if you want to build a viral business amongst children, you need to be a role model. And if you want to be the best possible role model, then that includes talking well about your parents. Now, I'm not saying that you make up stories or you fake. If you don't have a great relationship with your parents, then that's okay. I'm not here to judge. That's you. Everybody has an experience, and you need to sort of work through that yourself. But what I would say is, don't talk badly about your parents, no matter what the situation was. In most cases, your parents did the best they could under the circumstances. Maybe they weren't great. Maybe they had a tough time as children themselves, and they've just passed that on. There are lots of possible reasons they were how they were if they weren't great parents. But I think at the same time, if you can look at your parents and look at the good things about them and the good things that they did, and even if you can't do that, think about other people in your family, because I was very fortunate in that it wasn't just my parents; it was my grandparents who were amazing. Both my grandparents did so much for me, were so supportive, always were there for me whenever I needed them. So I really I was very fortunate in that sense, I guess. But it was through that I realized, it was through this conversation earlier this week that I realized that it was those stories that I was telling that was building this kind of, confidence in parents and the role model kind of idea that they were looking for, even though, like I said, a lot of them weren't conscious of it. So I hope that helps. The thing about it is that it's not something that you want to necessarily do in a sense of trying to use it as a strategy to gain favor with parents. But what you want to do is be genuine about it. Be genuine about how you ended up playing music and who were the influences in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be your parents. It can be teachers that you had. It can be friends. It can be whoever. Telling the stories, I think, is really the key to it. Telling the stories about what influenced you and how other people in your life made a big difference, because it's that experience that you're sharing, as well as the fact that you're grateful for those people in your life, and that's really what I say. I can think of half a dozen teachers and a couple of teachers in particular who I can't thank them enough. There's nothing I could do possibly in this world that would show how much gratitude I have towards them, because they made a major impact on my life and really did something special for me in building my confidence and teaching me the things that I needed to know. So yeah. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions? Paul, have you got any questions? Have you got anything to share on this topic? Any ideas that you could offer in this respect? Is Paul there? No, the microphone's. Yeah. You're right.
Get quick enough. I've been thinking a little bit quite a lot about this since reading Start With Why, and kind of the whole way I I put forward the reason I do what I do, you know, the why. So I think it's kind of, I suppose, tied with that, knowing the reason you're doing what you're doing, making that very obvious to everyone else, and then people hopefully gravitate to that. So that's the only real thought I've got. That's what I've really taken away from that book, and I'm still trying to um, make that. I'm still trying to write out why I do what I do, which I think is just so difficult to
Cool.
actually get
So,
down.
so let's just jump into this for a second. What was your experience? When did you first start learning music or become interested in learning music?
Around about 15, 16.
Okay. And what was your situation? How did you come to learn music? Was it through a friend? Was it through just your own?
It was my sister's boyfriend at the time started getting me to listen to guitar music, Green Day, Nirvana. He was into those kind of bands, and he was in a band. So we went. I remember watching his bands, and I started listening to the sort of music. And I thought I quite like that. I connected with a guy I'm still friends with now, in a part-time job I was doing in a supermarket. And no, that was too early. That must have been a bit later. But yeah, I just started to evolve this liking of music.
Yep.
Yeah,
As a child, did your parents listen to music? Was there any music in the house? What was the situation?
not really. It was quite. I had an interest for guitar in primary school, but they didn't do lessons in it, so it got kind of shelved. And I went to secondary school. I took a couple of group lessons, but it wasn't very well structured, and we were doing, you know, traditional kind of tunes. So I kind of again dropped out at the beginning of secondary school. So that would probably been about 12, 13, and then picked up towards the end when I say just about leaving, 15, sort of 16, and then got quite into it. Did a couple of years of computers, and then did music at college after that. So it was really 18, 19. It really went. I went for it.
Okay, cool, cool. So what I would say to you is you don't necessarily need to, obviously I can attribute a lot of my own musical influence to my parents. I was also fortunate in the sense that my parents were young. My mother was 20 when I was born, and my father was like 22, 23. So they were young, very, very, cool parents by the standard. They didn't
Yeah,
seem like parents. Most other parents seemed like, they were old. My parents always seemed like that they were very young and hip and groovy. So my dad was always buying the latest music, and he was. Not only was he was young at heart. He was still like a teenager when I was born. And my parents. I remember as a kid going to parties a lot, and always music playing in the car. There was always music, and my dad always had a great stereo system. That was the main thing that was important to him. So having these having young parents definitely made a difference as well. But really, you need to find your own stories, and if you can find your own stories about your parents as well, it doesn't have to be about music. It can just be the fact that your parents were there for you, and just talk nice and talk well about your parents, and give stories, real stories about what the parents did for you. Because as you start to think about this, and yourself as a parent, once you become a parent, I know for me and many of my friends, we become actually more appreciative of our own parents, because we start to realize what they did for us. The things that we took for granted, we start to, oh wow, mum and dad, I must have put them through hell, and they were there for me the whole time. And you start to think about you go back to those early days of the kind of things your parents did for you. So, teenage is kind of a selfish era where we sort of think about ourselves and what our parents didn't do for us. You didn't do this and you didn't do that for me. But then as you sort of mature, you realize, well, my parents actually did a lot for me. So yeah. So if you can think about those things, and not, it's not about pushing those stories out there. I did it without even thinking about it. It was just something that, obviously because of my close relationship with both my parents, I just tended to talk about them. If you can sort of, use it helps parents to relate to you. It helps them to see that you are someone who's a positive role model. And what I come back to is the fact that when they see a teacher, so I go back to, I'll give you a couple more examples. I go back to my sixth grade teacher. My sixth grade teacher talked about his mum all the time. You know, maybe as an adult you probably think he'd be too much, but he just adored his mum, and he used to bring her in every now and again at school, and you know, say, "This is my mum," and he'd make jokes. But he was really funny. He was comical, but we learnt so much from this guy. He was such an influence, such inspiration, and everybody knew him. Like anyone who went to that school, I think over probably a 15-year period, knew him and his reputation. He was just the famous teacher. But it was part of, I think, you know, he had such a respect for his mother that, you know, I think that gained him a lot of respect right across the board from other parents and whatever. They just thought, wow, this guy, I want my child to be like you. I want him to grow up and to think the world of me. So that's kind of how parents are thinking. Now, the other example I'll give is, and this might seem a bit far-fetched, but if you think about it, it makes sense, and that is that if we think about the classic movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie was the child who had 4 grandparents and 2 parents, and they all respected. They were all very nice. Okay, they were all good people, and Charlie was such a good kid. And then you compare him to the other kids who were all spoiled and horrible and, you know, nasty kids who just demanded everything, got everything. Charlie was you know, was just totally black and white. And so when that movie, I think part of the reason that movie was so successful, or the story, so to speak, was because as kids we could relate to it, because, you know, we wanted to have the chocolate in the factory and all the rest of it. It was the big fantasy as a kid. But for parents, there were these lessons in there. It's like, be a good kid like Charlie. Don't be the selfish kid like, you know, Violet Beauregard or whoever they were. So there was this contrast which really, you know, helped the adults to come in on that movie as well. So it became, yeah, a classic movie of not just, you know, the fantasy of the child, but also the lessons that the parents want the kids to get as well. So, yeah. Yeah, so anything to add there, Paul?
No, it makes sense.
No, all good. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll go to Ben. Ben, have you got any questions, or maybe, you know, if you maybe could tell us a little bit more about how you started with music? What age did you start?
Well, I started playing when I was 6, so not many memories of this or that. I believe the stories that I would throw tantrums to not practice sometimes, but I'm sure that won't be all that inspiring for the parents if I say that.
Did they beat you? Did they beat you with a big stick? Maybe. Make you practice?
Hang me out the window.
So your parents decided they wanted you to play music or learn music, but for you, you were.
I was given a guitar when I was 6 for my birthday, and just kept making noise with it until they said, "Let's get this noise a bit more directed."
Cool. Cool.
And then I got lessons, and doesn't mean I wanted to practice, but I wanted to do the lessons.
So you enjoyed the lessons?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, you know, again, we don't have to go into specifics here, but you think of the positives, all right? Go through, think of those stories, the positive stories, how today, you know, I think of I saw it's kind of a doco. It is about this guy who's an amazing canoe builder from Canada, and he said how his father made him learn when he was a kid, and he hated it, and he used to hated his dad at the time, and he said, but now I'm so grateful, and he's apparently one of the best in the world at making canoes, but he said that it was his father that sort of, you know, got him to do it, and he's grateful. So sometimes, you know, just giving those, it's not necessarily about forcing the child, you know, and hating it, but understanding that the fact that the child's not going to want to do it all the time. You know, even tonight with Mia, and she does this nearly every time we start to practice, is, I don't want to do it, I don't like it, I don't want to do it, Dad. Why do I have to do it? And I say, sweetie, all kids are the same. No kids want to practice. Trust me, they all are the same as you. It's just normal. But all we need to do, let's just do 15 minutes, okay? That's all I need you to give me. And then starts doing it, and she mucks around a little bit, and then bang, she's into it, and it all goes smoothly. And the next thing you know, she wants to go down and downstairs to her grandparents and show them what she's just done. So she does want to do it, but she doesn't always want to do the practice because she's in the moment. She's just thinking about, I just want to go and watch some cartoons, or I just want to play. I don't want to sit here and have to learn something. Because I even posed her the question, what do you want to learn? What would you like to learn if you could learn? She said, I'd like to watch cartoons. That's not learning. What would you like to learn? And obviously, learning is an effort, so she'd rather not. So anything else to add there, Ben, to this topic?
Don't think so. Maybe I could talk about how me and my mum share a taste in music, so that's a way with which we can connect quite easily.
Great, yeah. It's the same with my dad. In fact, we shared a lot more when I was a teenager in 20. We sort of went a little bit different as we got older. He tended to sort of get more into the bluesy folk music, the Bob Dylan type, whereas I kind of went off that and got more into, I guess jazz fusion more. But yeah, but we still relate on a lot of levels, and we still have a lot of common music that we like. We like Pink Floyd and the classic kind of Zeppelin, and we still Stevie Ray Vaughan, and we have these kind of areas that we connect on still. So yeah, that's cool. Excellent. All right, so Andrew, welcome. Can you hear me there, Andrew?
Hear me?
I can hear you now. Cool. Yeah.
You can? Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, Andrew. I know we haven't sort of gone into it a lot, but I know that you do pretty well with the kids, right? You teach a lot of kids.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got. I did the count today, and we're just over 120 for the moment. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, you're killing it. That's great. Yeah. And I know that you've had a lot of focus on the kids. So, in terms of getting can you give any tips? How do you do it? Why do they come to you? What's the secret to your 120 students?
I don't know. I got to be honest. I just I don't know, David. I don't know if I can answer that question. To be honest,
I get it. Don't worry, because it's one of those questions that I've been pondering for years now to try and answer. So I totally get it. But you'll have these moments where you'll kind of start to see glimpses of it. So yeah, just let the question sit for now. Yeah, it's obviously, what do you do when you're talking to a parent? If a parent says to you something like, my child won't practice at home, how do you deal with that?
Exact same way as you. No kid wants to practice. I had a bit of a chuckle when you said that. That's so true. They don't want to practice, and you get that all the time. And I used the G4 example as that I learned from you, which was, if a child says to you that they don't want to brush their teeth, you don't let it go. You tell them to brush their teeth. And I just use that every time. If they come out and say, and you ask them, have you brushed your teeth? And they say no. And then you say, well, you need to go brush your teeth. And if they say no, then there's an issue there, and you're going to deal with it, and they're going to have to brush their teeth. And I say, if you just apply the same principle with the practice, and start small, and sometimes parents think that, in order to learn the instrument, the kid has to practice like for an hour, 6 days a week. And the younger they are, that's certainly not the case, So always start small and start with 5 minutes and build it up to 10. And I've got some 7 and 8 year old kids that are easily blitzing half an hour to 40 minutes practice. And then you got some that just don't want to practice, but I can't remember who said it, but love coming to the lessons, love coming and hanging out with the other kids and playing, but don't want to practice. So, yeah, brush your teeth and practice, same thing.
Yeah, and it comes down to the parents, because a lot of the time it's if the parents aren't sort of getting the practice happening, then there's no momentum there. So I know, Mia, after 3 years now of doing guitar, she still doesn't want to practice because it hasn't kicked in yet. There'll be, I know there'll be a point, and it might take until she's 14, who knows, but there'll be a point where it'll kick in for her that she will want to do it herself. I will no longer have to be sort of nurturing it there. And because she started young, I'm not expecting it to happen, anytime soon. But I can look at there's I think I posted it on the Facebook page. There's a Japanese girl her name's Lisa X. I don't know if any of you guys have seen her, but she just she's playing here with Guthrie Govan, in Japan. He just turned up here a couple of days ago. But she's an extraordinary little talent, and she's only 10 years old. But you can see that for her it kicked in early. There's this point. There's also a kid in South America, I think, who's really good as well. But there are some kids where it just kicks in early. They just get the kind of obsession to want to play guitar and to work things out. And that's something special, but it's far from the norm. If you scour the internet, scour YouTube, out of probably 1 million kids or more that play guitar that are under the age of 7 in the world, probably more, I've found 2 who have this kind of thing. And so those things happen, but they're very rare. They're just that odd kid here and there who seems to take to the idea of playing guitar. They'll just sit there and fiddle. Maybe they have a touch of autism, or who knows. But there's something that drives them to want to practice guitar every day and get it perfect, and they listen and they get the details. But for other kids and other parents and even us as teachers to expect that of our own students and of our own children is unreasonable. It's not going to happen. It's going to be, like I said, very rare. But it's interesting because a lot of these when you'll see it, it'll happen. A lot of these child prodigies will disappear. They'll get to the teen and you'll never hear of them again. And that's because they don't necessarily go on with it. That obsession that they had as a child doesn't always sustain. In fact, in most cases, it doesn't sustain. So there are a few that it does. Tommy Emmanuel is an example of I guess what you would call a child prodigy. He started at 3 or 4 years of age, and his parents were traveling musicians, and so him and his brother were constantly playing, and so they went on with it. But most of the time they don't go on with it, and so I think this is sometimes where the internet and YouTube and things can skew things out a little bit, and people have these expectations, especially teachers. Even I know I felt should Mia be up to this level? She's 7 now, and here's this girl who's 8 who's playing Dream Theater note for note. Maybe Mia's going too slow. Maybe I need to push her harder. But no, it's just that is a very special child. But just to come back to the practice side of things with children, I think that if parents aren't getting behind the child, like you say, and they're not getting them to brush their teeth every night and do the practice every night, so to speak, then they're not getting the momentum. The child is not building confidence, and so they're not going. Nothing's really happening. And I'm not saying that sometimes you could practice 10 minutes a day for 5 days a week. Especially for the younger children, 10 minutes a day is fine. That's all. When I started Mia, we started off with very short practice periods, but she was quite young. She was only 3.5, 4, but it didn't take long before it got up to 20 minutes. And now I find, when I sit down with her, it's very easy for half an hour to go by. It doesn't, seems to go by very quickly. And I think it's more about the parent getting into that routine of, okay, it's guitar time now. Let's sit down and let's do it, and getting into it. So yeah. Okay, cool. So I think we've covered that topic, and even though what I've touched on there may not seem necessarily like a big thing, it really is a huge thing. If you want to go viral with teaching children, it's the parents and the parents' faith in you as a role model that'll really make the difference, because that's what they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about you, and the spread of what you're doing will come through that idea of being a positive role model. David, I know you kind of came in late on this, but do you have any questions or anything you want to touch on?
Sorry, David, I did miss a bit of the topic. What I know it's maybe teaching children and.
Yeah, it's basically what I talked about was the kind of the secret to going viral, and it was all about the crux of what I was talking about was the fact that when you the secret is the parents, and when you get to the parents, it's about what they're looking for as a role model, and what they look for in a role model is somebody who is that it's probably take a little bit more to explain, but in short, it's about a role model. A good role model for many parents is a teacher who actually respects their parents and talks well about their own parents, gives good, because that's what they want from their own children. They want their children to grow up to be somebody who loves and appreciates and is grateful to their own parents. So if you are that kind of person, then you are the role model that they're looking for.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, you imagine take the other extreme of a teacher. Just imagine this kind of guitar dude, and you can and the first you see they've got a tattoo on their arm that says, "I hate my parents." Dad sucks, mom sucks. You know what I mean? That's the extreme. And you're going to be thinking, I don't know if I want this person teaching my kid. So that's kind of
mine up.
yeah, wear a shirt. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, let's get on to anything else. Because I haven't seen Andrew for a while. Andrew, have you got any topics that you want to talk about? You got any questions or?
There's something I want to have a think about, just because of my situation where I'm starting to run out of room for new students, and I was going to run it by you, and while we're here, I'll just throw the question out to you, but I was thinking of trialing intros as a group.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep, go on.
Yeah, so I guess that's just the nuts and bolts of it, is that when I get some inquiries come through, and I'll look at the time slot and I'll go, okay, I need to put you on a waiting list, and then, even if I just get 3, if I can't fill it up to 5, but if I get 3 and just have a waiting period of maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and if no one else shows up, then I'll just do the intro as per normal, but I'll just say, yeah, I'm doing intros, but they're group, and they go for 5 weeks, and it's $99 in the whole thing. I'm just thinking about giving that a whirl anyway and see how it goes.
I actually started that way. I did, but just to put it into context, I did adult groups where I would do 8 at a time for an hour, and I ran them for 10 weeks. This was when I first started doing group teaching, way back. And they went well. They were good, and they worked well because they were adults, and they were all beginners pretty much. But it did dwindle. I found that I'd start off with say 8 in a group, and then by the end of the 10 weeks, I was left with about half of them. And I was actually doing the reverse idea there. The idea was bring them in groups on a low price group lesson, and then get to the point where we finish that and then put them into private lessons. And so it was really just a promotion, if you like. But with G4, I never did that. I just started off by doing the private intros and then put them into groups. So, on one hand, I could say that I can't say it's not a good idea because I never did it. In the sense of bringing in 5 kids, let's say, who are all beginners and starting off in a group. There's no reason why it wouldn't work other than the teacher not having the experience. And that's one of the main reasons that I don't recommend it to most teachers, especially when they start out, because they don't have the experience, for number one, so they're probably going to find themselves, getting in trouble pretty quickly, and they'll lose a lot more students, and they'll put all this effort into marketing. But if you're at a point where you can afford to do it, that you can, go for it. Just it's worth trying. And if it doesn't work, you're finding that you're not converting them into groups as well, then just go back, just revert back to the old way. So.
Yeah. I think one of the disadvantages of doing it that way is that in that 5 weeks, you look at making a connection with the family. So if I'm talking just kids and mum or dad that are sitting on the lesson, that was my only kind of concern, is that you really can make that connection and find out a little bit about the family. In a group situation, straight off the bat, you kind of miss that. So I kind of looked at that and just went, oh, I don't know about that, but I think I'm going to give it a whirl. I'm going to give it a go and see if I can,
Because you are always leveraging, and you might find other ways to make that connection. In other words, you might spend a little bit more time when you first do a group, instead of doing it half an hour. You might still do the group half an hour, but you might allow an hour, and that's probably what I would do while you're trialing it, is to allow an hour. So therefore, the group runs for half an hour, but then you've got an extra half an hour there. You can talk to parents and get to know each of them and sort of build the connection with them and see how it goes. So yeah, that's probably what I would do. I think to me the strategy that we've got works, but there's always room for improvement, and it's just a matter of whether you're happy to take the risk on it and see what happens.
I think you've got to have the experience of doing intros before you try and tackle a group intro. I really do. So I'd probably discourage anyone who hasn't done a lot of intros and doesn't have a lot of experience from trying to tackle that. I definitely would probably discourage it and just get used to actually doing intro and showing people, the G4 and how it works and the checklist and talking about practice and all that sort of stuff, where I think I've done it quite a few times now, and it is different depending on the people, and situations occur within intros and different things come up, different questions come up, of course, but I think I could still sell it and work it pretty well now.
Yeah, and I think you'll work it out as well, even if you do find it a little bit sort of different at the beginning, because it's really the same scenario as group teaching to begin with. When a lot of teachers go from being private teachers, and I'm talking teachers sometimes who've had 10 or 20 years experience, and they start teaching group, they quickly find themselves out of their depth. But what most of them do is that they just quit and go back to teaching private, because I had a guy who'd been teaching for 20 years. He said, I tried the group thing and it didn't work, so I don't think it's a good idea. And it's like, well, it's like a beginner student coming and trying guitar out for 3 weeks and saying it doesn't work. You don't have the experience. You've got to give it time. And so, so even though you'll jump in there, I remember when I first started doing the G4 groups, I was clumsy. Things weren't going smoothly all the time. There were things that I had to work out and systems that I had to create, and that's where the G4 method really came together. The early G4 method was nothing like it is today, but I quickly made these changes and iterations to systemize everything. And I'd have sheets of paper at the end of a shift a day where I had sometimes 2 A4s with 20, 30, 40 points on things that I had to do, things to add on, change, take away, all these little things that I had to do, improve the way that I spoke to people, responses, what do I say in this case, what should the email, this email be, what should that be. So that is, if you're prepared for that, I think that you'll do fine. If you sort of go in with the idea of, okay, I'm going to teach the intro in a group scenario, but go in with a notepad and write down all the things that come up as challenges. I didn't feel there was enough time. I felt that I didn't connect with this parent how can I connect with the parents better? Maybe I can, give them all a phone call straight after the lesson. So yeah, just keep and sometimes you have the ideas coming as well.
Yeah, I definitely thought that after the intros, there needs to be some sort of email connection straight up.
Yeah.
Even thought about maybe filming their intro and sending them a copy of the what happened at the intro.
Yep.
For each of those lessons. So each week they do the lesson and they have the intro on the Monday, by mid Tuesday or something they've got an email where they can watch what happened in that first lesson.
Yep.
To help recap. Just as better service too.
Exactly. And you've now, because you're leveraging your time, rather than you spending 2.5 hours every week teaching those 5 students, now you're only spending half an hour. Even if it's stretched to an hour, you're now gaining an extra, hour and a half to 2 hours every week. So use that time, leverage that time to build systems and improve the kind of the level of service you give everybody across the board. So, and I think this is a great topic in that what you're trying to do is leverage your time. When I'm thinking of students and they're thinking about paying me for an hour of my time, right? That they want to give me so much money and an hour of my time. It's like if 5 of you all give me the same money, even if it's a little bit less, but if 5 of you give me that money and I can do that, give you pretty much the same value or better in that hour that you're paying me for, the half an hour, let's say, and then I can use that other time to develop the systems and the business and the resources and everything, then it's going to be better for everybody. You guys are going to be way better off than, and that's where G4, it's not just, went from me leveraging myself and my time to now leveraging all of our time as a network, so that we're bringing in ideas, that we're, this is, by the way, this is the 100th video that I've done as G4 Guitar TV, which is these conversations that we have and these topics that we cover, number 100, and there's others. This is just of this series. So that's and each of them go for an hour minimum, sometimes more. So there's over 100 hours there of video that now is available for anybody who joins G4 or any of you guys to go back and review and listen to. That's a hell of a lot of content. So the leveraging is the name of the game. Keep looking for ways to leverage your time, leverage what you do, and as a network, us leveraging G4 in as many ways as possible. The amount of content that we've got out there is just huge, just amongst us. Imagine if we recorded all our lessons of each one of you, and I know some of you are doing it, videoed every single one of your lessons, and we put all that. There'd be thousands of hours of guitar lessons there, but it's just a matter of always thinking about how you can deliver more to your students, give your students more value for what they're paying. Don't think about it in the terms of your time. I'm working an hour, therefore I want to earn $50, $100 an hour. Therefore, if someone wants my time, they're paying me. That's just a basic consultant. It's the lowest, to me, it's the lowest form of earning money, is to get paid by the hour by someone. The highest that you can do is to sell your value, and as musicians, we know the greatest example of that, or one of the best examples, and that's concerts. You can go and see a concert of a big band. You name any big band these days, and the show that they put on is incredible. I went and saw Roger Waters' The Wall, which apparently cost them something like $3 million to put together, just to for the stage, to build the stage. It was millions of dollars just to build the stage, and the sound and everything. It was just incredible. The quality of that whole experience, and he did this as a worldwide tour. They can't do that if they're playing to 2 or 3 people a night. It comes from leveraging lots of people in a room at the same time. So if you can keep thinking of how to leverage your business and how to leverage your time and your experience, then your income will reflect that. I think it was Tony Robbins who said that. Anyway, use the example of you know, the person who earns the most is the person who helps the most people. So it's not the quality of the help of that person, it's the number of people they help. So, for example, a great teacher can be operating in a school somewhere in the suburbs of the UK, Australia, America, wherever, and they may be changing lives. They may be an amazing teacher doing amazing work, but they're probably earning about $40,000 a year. Whereas if you take somebody who, an Oprah, who does a show and millions of people tune in to view her, whatever. She's making millions and millions of dollars because she's just helping more people. Whether or not the quality of what she's doing is better is irrelevant. What's happening is that she's affecting more people. So if you want to increase your income, you have to think about quantity as well as the quality. Keep increasing the quality of what you do. It's not a substitute for quality. If you're a crap teacher and you're putting out crap content, you're probably not going to get the followers. You've got to have good content to start with, and you've got to be delivering well. But you need to think about, how can I help more and more people? That's how you're going to increase your income. Thanks, Andrew. I'll move on to Ben. Ben, have you got anything that you want to touch on? Is Ben there? No. Ben? I'll tune back into Ben in a minute. His mic is, I don't know if you can hear me, Ben, but your microphone is muted. David, have you got any topic you'd like to talk about?
I guess one of the things that I've been looking into at the moment is when we do the Facebook ads, and we get and they subscribe on the G4 website, and then we get the details from, is it AWeber, I think?
Yep.
Yeah. Is how to generate that from like a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. There seems to be like a gap somewhere, in the middle, and it's kind of like the crossover point to that, really.
Okay. So what you're saying is, when someone goes to your website and they fill in the form, and it's an inquiry form now. It's no longer a free download. So we're assuming they're interested in learning guitar. And so, are you getting their phone number?
On some these are, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ring the past ones that I have, because some of them have provided their numbers. So, and I always find, and I have rang them in the past, rang people in the past, but they always seem to be still in that marketing qualified kind of stage rather than the sales stage.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of ways or systems or emails that I can send, just to then bridge them into that kind of, ready to sign stage.
Okay, so the first thing is that when you get a phone number, the time it takes you to respond is a big thing. I've found the difference between responding to someone within minutes compared to responding them with, like an hour later, can make a huge difference. Because when people inquire, they're ready, they're in the mode, they've just tried to contact you to talk to you, or filled in your form. So what you want to do, obviously, when that email comes through, is try and respond as quickly as possible. If there's a phone number, definitely call them. Email is really the second thing that you would want to do. If you're only getting an email and they're not leaving a phone number, that's usually a good sign that they're only mildly interested. That it's not necessarily a hot lead. People who are interested will put their phone number in. I know I would. So in that case, again, you still want to kind of shoot them off an email as soon as you can, and follow up as well. So when you've done that first email, if you don't get a response, send another second email the next day, and then maybe another one the day after. And really what the follow-up emails are all about is just simply saying, hi, it's David here, just want to check that you got my email, because I haven't heard back from you. Could you just respond, let me know. And then the second follow-up email you say is, I'm not sure if these are going to spam, but I just wanted to check to see if you are actually receiving my email. If you don't get a response after those 3 emails, those 2 follow-up emails, I should say, leave it a week, follow up again. If you don't get a response, then they're probably not going to respond for whatever reason. It's hard to really know. People, when they fill in forms online, tend to do it, off the spur of the moment. Things change. They might have found a teacher. They might have decided that now's not the time. Whatever. There's multiple reasons, and especially if they don't give you a phone number. There's not really a lot more you can do in converting them other than being quick to follow up. That really was always my kind of secret to getting good responses, to be really responsive and quickly. Even when they come through on my email now, when I get somebody who fills in a form and it comes through to me sometimes, if I'm online and because I check my email quite regularly, if they come through, then I will respond to them straight away, and just even if it's just a question, just to sort of say, are the lessons for you or whatever, or where are you, etc. So that's about all I can say.
Sorry, I didn't know that we'd stopped doing the free download, so I didn't know it was then it's gone on to just a form, that's filled in online.
Let me check on your site, because it came up and we sort of discussed it, and everybody or those who were involved in the discussion all voted for it to go that way. But just let me check with yours, because it can be either way. I mean, if you want to have it the free download, we can do that as well. But it was just that some of the teachers were saying that people were getting the free download, but they weren't actually responding. Hang on. Sorry. Okay, so it's coming up as we speak. So I mean, the free, it really depends. The free download offers, you're probably going to get more people who fill it in. Okay, so you got the guitar lesson inquiry. Yeah, so we did change yours over. But would you prefer the free download?
No, I'll go with what everyone's doing, to be honest. Because I know that I was struggling to convert people from the free download anyway. So so I'm willing to give this new way a go.
Yeah, I think, that what I like about the way it is now is that the form is that you're only going to get people who are interested in lessons. So there's no reason for them to fill in the form other than they're inquiring. So it's really a very clear, direct, this is what. Now, the free download, the giving away something free, it works, and it's a good thing to do in certain situations, but it creates more work for you. And it's really, I think, when you give away free things, I give away a free ebook for G4, but and a free copy of the G4 method as well. But the idea of that is that it gets people filling in the form. It's all automated. The emails are all automated, and so I don't really have to do anything until someone responds. And generally, what happens is that they kind of get a series of emails, and at some point in that series, I see a sale come through. They buy something. And that's when I know, okay, this is someone that I can contact. So then I follow up and say, how are things going? And even all that's automated. Every kind of stage of it's automated. But then there's a point where I'll jump in and say, is everything going okay? Do you want to have a bit of Skype chat so I can take you through things? And then we go from there. And that's how people basically join G4. So.
Okay. One idea that I had was is to start writing maybe like blogs or emails that have value in them, and then at the bottom have a call to action. So then I can start building trust for those people who are maybe just kind of fence sitting a little bit, or want guitar lessons, but the kind of trust isn't built there yet.
Yeah.
That was one idea, with the email list.
Great. See, this comes back to the leveraging of G4. Remember, I'm writing blogs, and I'm sort of on a mission this year to write a blog every week for students. So you don't have to go to that trouble. You can write blogs if you want, and you might want to write some kind of more specific ones for what you're into and what's even relevant to you locally. But because I'm writing those blogs, then you can leverage that. So you can sort of say, well, rather than me spending 3 hours every week trying to put a blog together, because it takes that long. It'll take you 3 hours to write the blog, to edit it, to get it published, the whole thing. It just takes that long. So if you, like I said, you can go to the G4 blogs and leverage that, and even start to see which ones do better. Which ones you're getting more response from. Test different ones. Send because there's a whole bunch of blogs there. I think there's already 300 or something there. So you've got plenty to choose from. And I've just upgraded our blog as well, so it looks really good. We've got a new look for the whole blog, how I learnt guitar. Go there and have a look at that and try and by getting your students or getting people who are interested looking at our blog, and they subscribe to the blog and they get to sort of learn more about who we are and what G4 is about through just getting involved. That's when they're going to come looking for you, or when they get an email from you. And I would recommend for you to send out an email once, maybe every couple of months, let's say 4 times a year as a minimum, with some kind of offer for them. So if they're not responding, they're not taking up your £59 offer, do an open day, do a half price special, do a £5 trial lesson. Just do a couple of different things throughout the year that go to those people, because every time I do, I sell the G4 guitar method for $47, as you know, US. And then what I do is a couple of times a year, I throw it out there for $19. And all these people who haven't touched it at $47, and I'm talking like, out of a list of 10,000 people, out of that 10,000 people, then none of them are actually buying it at 47. The ones who have bought go onto a different list, but let's say the 10,000 that haven't bought, I throw this list, I sell a couple of hundred of them at $19. So here I pull out 200 sales from people who were not prepared to pay $47 but are prepared to pay $19. And if you do things, you do all the things, all the strategies such as time sensitive. In other words, I do things like 3-day sale, so you could have a 3-day offer, get a £5 lesson. Subscribe to what is it again? I've just forgotten the name. What is it, Paul? Sumo? What are they called again? The Sumo? AppSumo. I think Paul subscribes as well, yeah. So AppSumo, subscribe to them and see how they do it. They're really clever. And they always have these offers where they're time sensitive. So you've got 48 hours to take up their offer. Like they just sent me one through now, just to give you a quick idea, where it says it normally costs $80, but for $20 I get a year's subscription to a book site where I can read there's 1,000+ titles of book summaries. So I can get access to a whole bunch of book summaries for $20. I think bargain. $20, I'm in. But if I don't do it within the next 24 hours, I think it is, or 48 hours, I miss out. So it makes me act now. So I can't just sort of say, oh, I'll get to that later. So if you can do things like that, where you go out to, these are people who haven't bought from you, and for whatever reason. So if you send them out a special offer, make it time sensitive, make it something that's kind of irresistible, and then see what happens. I almost guarantee you'll get takers. If you've got a big enough list. If your list is too small, maybe not. But if you've got a couple of hundred people on a list, you'll get at least 1 in 100 if the offer's right. will take it up. Okay.
Just one last thing as well. With the flyers, I thought about obviously keeping the flyer the same layout, but actually putting, because it's it's always a special, is actually to put time frame on the flyer for the people who are maybe fence sitting, who are
Yep.
just collecting the flyers, and then actually put a time limit on that.
Absolutely. Part of what the development of the FileMaker Pro is that I'm going to build in these kind of things into the program, so you can print out your flyers anytime, and you can change certain elements of it. And one of those elements will be changing the price, changing the date, valid until whatever. So you can do these kind of things where we can sort of build in those kind of more time-sensitive areas. Another thing in marketing, which I think that we all need to sort of think more about and get more aggressive with, is that your Facebook now and Google, we know about the audience, the custom audiences. So if you know the email addresses or phone numbers of people in your area, then you can build a custom audience from those people, and then you can market just to those people. And even though you've got to go to the trouble of collecting them, for example, I'm getting Sizer now to go and collect the email addresses of guitar teachers. So when I do my Facebook marketing, I'm only going to target people who are actually guitar teachers. I have a special campaign that targets them, and then what I do is I filter those people who click on my ads, and I'm getting a high click-through rate because of this. Because I'm targeting just guitar teachers, we've got something like 1,000 on there on the list at the moment. These are people who've never. These aren't people who are on my other lists. These are people who've never heard of G4 or never approached G4 before. These are guitar teachers. We've put them on a list, so we've got over 1,000 of them, and I've been and the click-through rate is 4 or 5 times higher than normal. So if you can start collecting email addresses of people who live in a certain area where you are, especially if they're the right demographic, then you can build a list where you've got these people who are your target audience, and then you've got them as a custom audience. So you're not just sending out ads willy-nilly, and then you also are filtering those people into certain groups. In other words, those who click on your ad versus those who haven't clicked on your ad. So for someone who's clicked on your ad, there's someone who's interested. So maybe they just need the right offer. But the people who are not clicking on your ad, then there's something about the ad that's not working for them. So maybe you need to send them a different ad with a different picture or something to see if that appeals to them. But you can start to separate them into different audiences and target the right people. So, for instance, Paul ran an open day. He's got a list of people there who've joined, and he's got a list of people who didn't join. So he's got, obviously, contact numbers and email addresses of different people. So he now can separate them into 2 different audiences and decide what he's going to target with those and test the different types of ads. So I would be looking how you can actively get the names or email addresses and phone numbers of people in your area, and that could mean giving away something free, right? So it could be targeting your area and giving something free, and that's where the G4 Guitar Method free can actually get you the email addresses that you're looking for.
Just one last thing, David.
Yep.
I'm going to make contact with past students, and we don't really have, not that I know of, I've had a look through, but I can't find any script, or I was thinking about putting a script together, just a basic kind of points of contact, and maybe, obviously it's making the connection again, isn't it, once you ring your past students, and just seeing where they're up to. So is there any approach that you could suggest on that?
Yeah, I think there is some information on that because we've definitely covered it a few times. It's quite simple. When you ring someone who's a past student, just ring them and just say that you're doing a survey and you're just wanting to find out if they're still playing guitar. That's it. That's all you need to do. And then from there, they either say, no, I'm not playing guitar anymore. You just say, okay, no problem. We're just running a survey to see how many people, once they stop lessons, continue to play guitar. And if they're not playing guitar, then you're giving that kind of, well, no, I'm not interested. Then you just say thanks very much. And it's not like you're trying to sell them anything. It's just a survey. That's all. Those who say, oh, yes, I am still playing guitar, there's the conversation there, and you just run it from there, and you just sort of say, okay, great, cool. So how's it going? You know, are you still finding that you're progressing okay? Are you getting stuck in any areas? What kind of songs you just start qualifying them again until you start feeling that you're getting them to a point where they're interested in maybe trying a lesson. And even so, in that conversation, I've done this before. I wouldn't end the call without saying to them, look, why don't you come down and I'll do a free assessment with you. Or sometimes I'd say to you, why don't you come down and do a lesson, and you know, this is the price, this is the offer. So you can throw an offer at them, or you can offer them a free trial, just depending on how you feel where they're at. And if they take up your offer, there's a good chance they're ready for more lessons. And it's about sort of showing them the value of what you can do for them.
Okay.
Because you know you can. We all know that a coach is always valuable. We sometimes we don't know it in the moment, but when we look back at our coaches and we go, wow, that was a great time. I really, you know, I'm glad I had that coach. Very, very few, even the bad experiences. I've had coaches who weren't good coaches, or I've been to seminars that, you know, by people who weren't very good. But what I learned was what not to do. You know, I learned by just watching them going, well, I know not to do that, because that obviously doesn't work. So, you know, there's always something you get out of every experience. So.
Okay.
Cool. Paul, have you got anything you want to add before we quit?
There was quite a few things that came out there, but not really. Well, one thing I was going to test, actually, David was going to say, was the option, landing page for lessons, and they can book online, basically, straight in the schedule. So I keep having I've had it a few times in the last few weeks where I've had the phones, and it's taken me about 3 days to get back to them because they're not answering, message has been left, off I go again, phone back the next day. And like I said then, they're just getting cooler and cooler through that process, aren't they? So yeah. My idea is to have it online, so you can book in online, to have in my answer phone message that you can book in online, to have as an autoresponder when someone emails me straight away, you can book in online. So try and get people online, make it clear there's a money back guarantee, so there's no worry about doing that. It's not, it's nothing dodgy or anything like that. So that's the only thing I could really add to that. Is after reading 4 Hour Work Week as well, it's made me think more automated and more hands off.
Definitely, yeah. You want to start moving through that process, and I think you and Andrew, and anyone else who's got more than about 50 students should definitely be thinking of the automation side of it, because once you get to that kind of 50 mark, that's where you're sort of starting to tip, and people have the confidence in you. Your students probably know someone else who's learning with you, or know of someone else who's learning with you in your area. So you want to make it easy as possible, because we know for a fact, this comes up all the time in the marketing seminars that I go to, that one of the biggest barriers to people buying are the number of steps they have to take. And by reducing those steps, Amazon were big on that, getting things to a one-click buy. So you want to, we want to get to that. I'm obviously I can't do everything from where I am, but I'm trying to do as much as I can, and this is where the FileMaker is coming into it. Is that you want to get it to the point where people can literally, a couple of clicks, they're enrolled and ready to go. So if you just keep looking at it, and look, once I get FileMaker out there, then we'll talk more about it, because once FileMaker's there, then I can look at integrating it with other APIs and things like that. It'll take a little bit of time, but that's the idea, is to get it. Once that's there, then we can go the next step.
Cool.
All right, beautiful. All right, we better wrap up there. Thanks, guys. And
can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure, go Ben.
I'm going to send a number of emails out doing an email offer. I was just wondering, seeing as I've only got kind of 30 to 50 emails I need to send, should I use MailChimp? Because I know some things just don't like MailChimp anyway, and then that might make it more likely to not go to people. I was wondering if it's worth when the numbers are that low, putting it into the email client myself and just sending them one by one?
Well, I think for the best response, sending them one by one would definitely be the way to go, because then it's personalised. And yeah, but the only reason I'd recommend going with MailChimp or something like that is to get the statistics, the feedback that way, and also to get your automation going, to sort of to use the system. But you're definitely going to get more response if you send the emails directly to each person, and even if you kind of change them slightly, because one of the things that they pick up on in these things is whether or not you're sending out 50 emails that are all the same. If each email has a slight difference about it, then it's less likely to get detected as spam.
Okay.
Yeah, so it depends on what you're aiming for. If you're aiming to get the best response possible, send. See, what I would do, really, I think is a better strategy, is not to send 50 emails all in one day, is to send a couple of emails each day. Just get into that habit, build it into your daily, your miracle morning routine of having, okay, today I'm going to send 3 emails out to people on my list, and just keep doing that. Keep following up every day, and that way you're going to get the follow-ups coming back to you more spread out, rather than sending 50 and getting them all at once, and not being able to keep up with it.
That's probably a better idea, actually.
Yeah. So that's what I've done in my system anyway, is having it where I just send a couple of emails each day.
Cool.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, guys, and see you in Facebook, and same time, same channel next week. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
See you later.
Okay,
Bye, guys.
sayonara.